Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 21st of September 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So some new stablecoin regulation out of the US today. So this DB account on Twitter said issuing a stablecoin without approval from appropriate regulators could be punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a $1 million fine under draft House bill. So this is a bill in the US House, not the Senate here, and you can read the full details at this block link. Now, as far as my reading goes, this I think only applies to algo stablecoins or stablecoins that are backed by self-referential collateral. So, for example, this would apply to UST, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. Well, it kind of exists, but it's not really a stablecoin anymore. Because Luna was backing it up, or not backing it up, so to speak, and it wouldn't apply to things like DAI or USDC or USDT, right? Because they have real collateral backing it up. I don't think this is going to be like the way it is if it gets accepted into law, or if it gets accepted into regulation, because this is just in the House right now. It still has to pass the House, then go to the Senate. It's probably going to die in the Senate. I don't know if we'll see this go much further than that, but the punishments are quite severe. I mean, like, you can even just see punishment by up to 5 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Like, that's crazy for I guess, like, white-collar crime. Like, those sorts of punishments don't really get dished out very often, and I guess we can all see why this is, why this has come to be. It's pretty much because of Terra. Like, this is just more fallout from the Terra debacle, where regulators are looking at what happened with Terra, what happened with UST, and looking at all the people that got wrecked and are like, wow, we can't let this go on. Like, they were just looking for an excuse to over-regulate the industry, and they got one. We gave them one on a silver platter, guys. Like, just ridiculous, right? Now, even though this only applies to algo stables, at least from my understanding, I still think it's a stupid regulation and a stupid bill. At the end of the day, like, you shouldn't regulate away experimentation, regulate away innovation. But I think that obviously when you look at Terra, it was a really bad idea, and a lot of people called it out as a bad idea. Now, if we want to encourage innovation and experimentation without things like Terra happening over and over again, the way you do it is you put guardrails in place as the creator of those projects, right? Like, you do like a guarded launch, as we've seen a lot of projects do, or we do kind of regulation within the industry ourselves, but that's a lot harder, I think, because as we saw, a lot of people called out Terra like for months and months and months, and were attacked, relentlessly attacked for it by the lunatics, right? And it got to a point where I think a lot of people capitulated and just said, wow, okay, Terra is actually going to work, or UST is actually going to work. This is a new paradigm. And then it obviously all came crashing down. So there is a fine line here and a fine balance. But I think the problem is that self-regulation is really, really hard, especially in the crypto industry. Because people just don't care, especially when they're making money, especially during bull markets. And on top of that, it's very hard to know what is a actual credible experiment / innovation, and something that's actually being built for the longer term and with good intentions, versus something that is only being built as something to extract money out of the ecosystem. Like, that, proving that is basically impossible, because you need to go through the courts to prove that, and even then it'd be very, very hard to do. So I think that governments are doing what they do best, which is regulate and draft new bills and draft laws. Like, this is to be expected. And I said, I believe, even before Terra collapsed, I had been saying for a while that stablecoins are going to be the thing that they regulate. It's the easiest thing for them to regulate, and it's coming. It's taken a bit longer than I thought, but it's not surprising to me at all. And there's also a section that State pulled out here that said the current draft bill under negotiation between House Financial Services Committee Chair Maxine Waters and the committee's top Republican Patrick McHenry would create a 2-year ban on stablecoins that aren't fully backed by cash or highly liquid assets like US Treasury bonds. The bill would also create a 2-year grace period for operators with coins that aren't currently collateralized by those assets to change their business model and receive approval. The Federal Reserve would also be directed to study the economic impact of US digital dollar, a process that the central bank has already begun with things like CBDC. Right? So this is the most interesting thing, I think, here, is that, like, on the surface, this doesn't actually look like a quote-unquote bad regulation or bad bill, right? Because it goes after the things that we know to be just bad in crypto, and we know to have heard of a lot of people in crypto. But as I just explained, there are other ways to regulate and to prevent these things from happening, but it is a delicate balance. Now, I do like that they seem to have a good grasp here that Stablecoins that can be backed by, cash or higher liquid assets, such as other stablecoins like how DAI is backed by USDC and higher liquid assets like ETH, or they can be backed by self-referential collateral, like what happened with USD. It was backed by Luna, which had that infinite mint function, and it would obviously it was based on some kind of like algorithmic behavior, so it wasn't great. And I do like that it was also proposed a grace period here for operators to basically stop building these things and build something that's collateralized. But as I said, and as I've said plenty of times in the past, I'm not in general fan of financial regulations, but again, I'm not surprised at all by this. Like I saw this morning and I was like, yep, okay, well, it's just more stablecoin regulation. And then I looked at the details and I'm like, okay, yep, thanks Do Kwon. This is all you, bro. Like this is literally all him and all the Terra debacle. Like, because they're making the delineation here between between stablecoins backed by cash and highly liquid assets and stablecoins backed by basically nothing, right? And they wouldn't be making that delineation if Terra hadn't blown up like it did, and I don't think they would be being this harsh about it either. I mean, up to 5 years in prison and a $1 million fine is very, very harsh, right? So you can kind of look at this as well and think, well, there are other things out there that may look like a Terra or an Algo stable, but are actually not like that. But yeah, okay, they're not totally backed by cash and highly liquid assets, but there's other reasons why they keep their peg or other reasons why they behave that way. So again, this does kill innovation off and it kills experimentation off if it was actually to go into law, to become a regulation here, but at the same time, like, we shouldn't be surprised. Now, that's not me kind of, I guess, giving excuses or giving a cop-out here for regulation. I don't think that this is the solution, but I guess, like, it's going to come whether I think that or not. Like, and there's nothing I can personally do because I'm not a US citizen. I can't vote for or against the representatives here. I can't do anything, right? Like, all I can do is spread the word. I know that I have a lot of Americans, obviously, that watch this show and listen to the show, but yeah, we're gonna have to see how this progresses. As I said, like, the thing is, a lot of things usually get passed in the House and then just die in the Senate, so we'll have to see. But I don't imagine this being too controversial. Like, it's kind of weird when I look at the two, I guess, parties in the US, like Democrats and Republicans, and the people within those parties. They have varied views on things. And I'm not going to get political here, but you definitely want to look at it yourself and look at where each party sits on these sorts of issues. But obviously, right now, it's not looking great, especially from, like, the SEC's point of view, with whatever Gary Gensler's up to and whatever he's saying, and other kind of, like, regulations and restrictions that just keep coming every other day. But at the same time, they're just draft bills. They're not in law just yet. And at the end of the day, like, anything can be drafted, anything can be put forward, and anyone can say whatever they want, but it just depends on the end result. So yeah, anyway, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check out the full breakdown from the block here. All right, so Danny Ryan announced on Twitter that EIP 2982, or Serenity Phase 0, was finally moved to final. Took just over 2 years. Fun fact, the merge happened exactly 2 years after this EIP's publishing date. So I remember when this first got published as, like, a draft or whatever, and being moved into final status means that it's done. This is just, like, amazing. I mean, it feels so much longer than 2 years for me. Because, like, I've been following this stuff so closely. But just thinking back to when this was proposed, if you had told me that it would take 2 years to get to the merge, I would have said, oh, no, I'm more optimistic. I think it's going to be quicker than that. But I also would have said, 2 years isn't that long. Okay, well, yeah, technically 2 years isn't that long relative to other things, but it feels a lot longer than 2 years. Like, especially because if you think about it, 2 years ago was 2020, right? It was like, September 2020. That was the, I guess, like, end of DeFi summer. And at the time, the Beacon Chain wasn't even live yet, right? The Beacon Chain went live December 1st, 2020. So just cool to see this moved into the final status here. And just, like, going through this, I read through this, plenty of different times when during the development of the Beacon Chain, the merge, all that sorts of stuff there. And for those of you who don't know, ETH 2 was known as Serenity at one point as well. So it was like, working towards Serenity or getting to Serenity. And there was different phases as part of the quote-unquote ETH 2 roadmap. Like, Phase 0 was going to be the Beacon Chain launched, and Phase 1 was going to be sharding. Phase 1.5 was going to be, like, something similar to the merge. And then Phase 2 was going to be, I think, like, full sharding or something. I can't remember exactly what the the details were, but there were these phases, and they got scrapped because it made more sense to do it the way we're doing it now. But just I took a little trip down memory lane after seeing this on Twitter today. So just wanted to highlight that for you guys. All right, so an interesting little research paper here published by Dionysius Zindros, I hope I said his name right here, talking about proofs of proof of stake with sublinear complexity. If that means nothing to you, it's all good because it means nothing to me either. But the interesting part of this tweet thread, and the thing that I understood the most, was this tweet here where he said, the goal of this work is to build a wallet or client that can bootstrap into Ethereum without downloading the whole blockchain's history, but still validating everything without trusting a server, contrary to MetaMask or Infura. So this is basically like a light client. And this is one of the holy grails of Ethereum, is with developing these light clients where essentially you don't have to use a full node to download the whole blockchain history and bootstrap your own, I guess, RPC, so to speak, right? So you can basically have an RPC on a mobile phone, for example, and be able to relay your own transactions with full security and full trust that the chain that you're looking at is the right one and you're interacting with the right thing. So you don't have to trust, you can verify. This research you can go check out for yourself. It's quite technical. I don't understand it under the hood, but it does look very interesting. And there is a thread as well to go along with this. But yeah, light clients is another thing that you guys should be learning about and paying attention to as we progress through the Ethereum roadmap. It is extremely important. And it goes hand in hand with things like the Verge and statelessness. But those sorts of things are definitely coming, and they're going to add a lot of value to Ethereum. All right, so Summer ESAT has a thread here today all around the Ethereum merge and how some solo stakers have enjoyed perfect or near perfect performance pre-merge, but are experiencing degraded performance post-merge. So he explains why this is the case. And some of the reasons are, one of the major reasons are resources, because pre-merge, you didn't have to run your own execution layer client. You could outsource that to a third party. But now, post-merge, you have to run your own execution client, which takes up more resources. So if you had something that didn't, if you had some hardware that didn't have those resources, then you would be feeling the pinch here. Maybe your validator feels slower. Maybe it's not attesting to it blocks as fast as it once was. It's not as effective as it once was. And these resources are like RAM, storage, CPU, along with SSD performance. There's also issues with client performance and client bugs, especially on the minority ones, from what I've seen. So, and user error and things like that. But yeah, generally this stuff will get ironed out. It's not critical or anything like that. But it's good to highlight that in a post-merge world, things did change under the hood for, especially for solo stakers who manage all their own stuff. And I think that they're gonna just, I guess, like it's like the participation rate on the beacon chain where it's just self-healing. Like people are just gonna pay attention to this. They're going to fix whatever needs fixing, and it'll all be well and good. So give this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But I just thought it was something very important that was highlighted here. All right, so I came across this new website called luckystaker.com, and this the other day, I should give some context here in the Discord channel. I was doing some really rough, terrible napkin math on what % chance you have each day of proposing a block with a solo validator. So you can see here that this website actually outlines that for you based on different time intervals. So every day you have a 1.67% chance to propose a block currently. So it's based on the amount of validators there are on the beacon chain. Like the more validators, the less chance there is for each individual validator to propose a block. The less, the more chance there is, right? So every one day you have 1.67% chance. 30 days is a 39.58% chance. 90 days is a 77.9% chance. And 180 days is a 95% chance, almost 100%. So you could expect, on average, for each of your validators as a solo staker, to propose a block twice a year on average. And proposing a block is only one. For proposing a block, you get rewards. And obviously, you don't just get the block reward, you get the fees and the potential MEV as well. But that's not the only way you earn rewards. You earn rewards for testing and being part of sync committees and all that sorts of stuff as well. So the reason why I was doing this napkin math, because I was trying to figure out, like, for my own validators, like what my chance would be. And obviously I'm not going to say what my chance would be because it would give away how many validators I have. But I wanted to work out what the chances were of 100% chance in a day as well. Like, so for 100% chance in a day, you just do the naive math here of 100 divided by 1.67, you would need 60 validators to do that, right? So, and that's each day. So you would, one of your 60 validators each day almost a pretty much 100% chance would propose a block on that day. And that's, or I just did the math again on that. That's 1,920 ETH. Is that how much you would need to propose a block of one of your validators each day? Now, every 30 days, it gets a lot easier, right? You would only need 2.5 validators, I think. Not even that. Obviously, you can't have half a validator, but 2.5 validators to propose a block every 30 days. There's a 100% chance. And then obviously it gets a lot higher from there on these intervals. Yeah, so I think, there aren't many people out there who would have 60 solo validators that they run to be able to get a block every day, but there definitely are some out there. I mean, I wish I was one of those. I will give away a little bit there. I definitely don't have 60 validators. I wish I did, because that'd be really cool. But there are people out there who do, and obviously, when you count pools into this sorts of stuff, it makes it's different. But this is just strictly speaking about solo validators. So I thought that was just a cool little stat to show here. But even if you're running one, your chance of proposing a block each year is 100%. Like, you're at least going to propose, at the very least, even if you're the most unlucky validator in the world, you're at least going to propose one a year. And in an ideal scenario, you'll propose 2 a year, as long as I'm doing my kind of, extrapolation here, because it only shows every 180 days, which is obviously 6 months, and I'm extrapolating that out to 365 days, and you have like a over 100% chance, right? So if you have almost 100% chance every 180 days, then yeah, you should propose two blocks. And if you're a lucky validator, I mean, the thing is as well is that because it's random and it's based on a percentage chance, there are some extremely lucky validators out there that propose blocks every month, for example, right? Like, and it's a 40% chance, so it's not actually extremely lucky. It is on average very lucky, but you can see actually on the Big Chain website the validators with the most rewards, and some of them haven't even been around for a while, but because they've been really lucky, and because they've even been luckier by proposing a block that had a lot of fees in it at one point in time, or a lot of MEV, they've been able to earn a lot of rewards. So there are some validators out there that have earned more rewards in the last few months than people who have been a validator since Genesis have earned, and that's just based on pure chance at the end of the day. As I said, it's random. There's no way to tell when you're gonna propose a block. There's no way to force yourself to propose a block. The only way you can tell when you're going to propose a block is when your time comes, basically. When you've got that window, it's not very long, but you have a window of seeing that you're up next to propose a block. But other than that, you don't know when it's going to happen. So it's always just cool to see the percent chances here. But yeah, it seems that you need around 60 validators to have a 100% chance of proposing a block each day here. All right, so there's a new LSD that was announced. Well, I mean, it's like a pseudo LSD called the Liquid Collective, which is an enterprise-grade liquid staking protocol. They're billing themselves as designed to meet the needs of institutions. So I did say that post-merge, we're probably going to see a lot more institutional staking come up, but I don't expect these institutions a lot of them to, I guess, like spin up their own infrastructure, because what Liquid Staking is doing here, what Liquid Collective is doing here is that they're actually partnering with a bunch of different companies. So they've partnered with Coinbase and Kraken as integrators. They've partnered with Figment, Coinbase Cloud, and Staked as validators, and they're going to be providing LSDs or liquid staking, I should say, for ETH and DOT and AVAX. So. And then if you go down, they're also going to be issuing a LSD called LS-ETH. So it is technically an LSD, but as I said, like, they're delegating that, I guess, infrastructure to people who already know how to run the infrastructure. But still cool to see more competition. As I said plenty of times, the two things we need is more competition and withdrawals being enabled to further decentralize and distribute stake out there. At least those are the two. Okay, they're not the only two things, but like they're some of the biggest things. And I've talked about it a lot already, so I'm not going to rehash it here. But I mean, some people have asked, what is an enterprise-grade liquid staking protocol designed for institutions? Well, basically, it's using enterprise-grade infrastructure, which is offered by things like services like Coinbase and Kraken, and marketing and selling the product to institutions. Now, there is a popular joke that on Twitter, Degen Spartan says it a lot, about scamming the boomers into buying our bags. Like, I feel like that's a very crude way of saying what this basically is, because institutions on-sell products to less sophisticated people, or people who just don't care to get involved and understand the nuances of things. And a lot of the time, that is the older folk because they have the wealth. They want to manage their wealth. They want to put it into something where they don't have to worry about it. And a lot of the times it's through these institutions, which then wrap these other products up and just sell it to their customers and earn a fee on it and all that. And basically, as the Jen Spartan says, scamming the boomers out of their money and using them to kind of pump our bags, so to speak. But that's essentially what this stuff does. And I don't think it's necessarily like a negative or a bad thing or anything. I think obviously the more people we get involved, the more money we get involved with staking, the better, because obviously the more ETH that's staked, the higher the security of Ethereum. And it's even better if we can just get people staking ETH without them even knowing it. I think that's really cool. But I still go back to what I said the other day, or I think yesterday, where I obviously believe that we shouldn't let any one entity have too much a share of the network, because that's obviously bad for decentralization. So we can still obviously have a decentralized chain with institutions on it, with big corporates and enterprises on it, but we obviously need to make sure that remains that way, because without the social layer enforcing this, without technical upgrades to make it to encourage decentralization and all that sorts of stuff, it could just end up very centralized down the line. But right now, I don't believe it is. I think that, even though there are centralization points right now with staking, we're actually faring pretty good, considering that we don't have withdrawals, and the fact is that liquid staking is just very, very popular because it's so easy, and staking with exchanges is so easy. But I think we're doing quite well. We can do a lot better, and I'll keep pushing to do a lot better. But it's just cool to see more competition entering the game with Liquid Collective here. All right, so OpenSea is now on Arbitrum. This is funny. I thought OpenSea would be going to Optimism first, but it seems they've landed on Arbitrum first. I'm sure they're going to deploy to Optimism as well, but this is a pretty big deal. I believe OpenSea is not on that many chains right now. I think they're on, obviously, the Ethereum mainnet, Polygon POS chain. I think they're on Solana maybe, but now they're on Arbitrum, and I don't think they're on anything else right now. And it seems like they're going to just keep deploying to every chain, so it's not going to be a big deal as time goes on. But I think it is a really big deal right now, because Arbitrum obviously has a big ecosystem. They have a pretty big NFT ecosystem as well. So it's cool to see that obviously the most popular NFT marketplace is now live on the Arbitrum network. So if you trade NFTs on Arbitrum, if you do anything NFT related, you'll obviously be very happy about this news, and I certainly am as well, because I think Arbitrum right now is like the lead for layer 2s. They definitely seem to have the most organic community. They definitely seem to have the best ecosystem right now. Optimism is behind, but like not that far behind. I think I would say they're a close second there in terms of ecosystem. But Arbitrum just is very strong right now. Now that's going to change over time. It's not going to be set in stone. I think obviously the token wars haven't even started yet. I mean, only Optimism really has a token out of Arbitrum and Optimism, and these other things like Starknet and ZK Sync and stuff like that. But the competition will definitely heat up. But as it stands right now, Arbitrum seems to be very, very strong and very much in the lead. So cool to see OpenSea deployed there. Now, speaking of Optimism, they also had an update today talking about Optimism Quest, which is basically their answer to Arbitrum Odyssey. It seems very similar here, but Optimism Quest is a guided exploration of the ecosystem that allows users to earn NFTs while exploring Optimism apps. And there's a thread around here of how to get involved. I think this is really cool, honestly. I think that just because Arbitrum did Odyssey, which is obviously similar to this, doesn't mean that Optimism can't do their own branded version of it and their own flavor of it, because I think that we should be encouraging as many people as possible to onboard into these layer 2s in whatever way possible. So I'm excited about this, and I think the NFTs actually look really cool as well. Like they're little, I mean, they're kind of like look like Game Boys / TV with different, I guess, logos and different designs depending on the different applications there. So I think that's pretty cool. But I love seeing adoption of layer 2s. That just gets me going. That's for sure. Like layer 1 protocol Ethereum is still my favorite thing, but like layer 2s doing innovative and cool things like Optimism Quest and Arbitrum Odyssey is definitely what gets me out of bed and gets me excited about this ecosystem. So you can go check this out at app.optimism.io/quests. I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you. So speaking of layer 2s, Infura announced today that devs on Starknet can now connect via the Infura API. So this is basically Infura supporting Starknet, which is cool to see. Obviously, as I've mentioned plenty of times, infrastructure is incredibly important to these layer 2s. And as I mentioned the other day, Infura is actually planning to decentralize as well. So I feel less bad about promoting Infura than I once did, because I didn't feel bad about promoting it, but obviously I knew it was centralized, so I would promote other solutions over it, and it's still centralized right now. But because Infura is moving towards a decentralized model, I'm getting more and more excited about the fact that Infura has such a large user base, and it's not going to be stuck in centralization hell. It's actually going to be decentralized. We don't know when that is, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But I feel better about kind of like talking about them now and talking about them in their future. But cool to see them supporting Starknet here. The Starknet ecosystem is still growing. It's, the funny thing is the Starknet ecosystem has a lot of apps on there, but I think a lot of them feel like hackathon-ish apps. They're not really fully fledged apps just yet. There's more and more of them coming online, but it's good to see that the different approaches here, where obviously on Arbitrum and Optimism, a lot of the apps are copies of Ethereum Layer 1, which is fine. It's exactly what we want to see, because obviously Ethereum Layer 1 is not where end users are going to be sitting long term. But on Starknet, it seems there's a lot of different apps on there, a lot of different experimentation happening on there. So I like those differences between the different ecosystems there. All right, so another bridge, I guess, protocol or project was announced today from Succinct Labs, where they published this blog post talking about interoperability. Oh, sorry, it's titled "Towards the Endgame of Blockchain Interoperability with Proof of Consensus." So they've been working on this for a little while here, and they say the current state of interoperability is very centralized. Popular multi-sig-based designs place immense trust on a small group of people. It's critical that the future of interop is as secure, decentralized, and uncensorable as the underlying blockchains bridged between. And they talk about IBC, which is part of Cosmos, and why IBC, like mechanism on Earth, won't work because computation is too expensive, and also the intricacies of the EVM here. And then they say, what if we use succinct proofs to make verifying consensus efficient? Similar to how ZK snarks are helping ZK rollup team scale execution by implementing ZK EVMs, what if we were able to use snarks to scale verification of consensus? So you can read this thread and the blog post for full details here. There is a bit of a debate in the comments as well about what this is and how it actually differs and how it works and how centralized versus decentralized it is. So you can go check that out and check out the blog post as well. I haven't fully digested it yet, so I can't really explain like I'm 5, but it seems cool, seems promising. Always cool to see new bridge designs and more innovation in the bridge space, but I'll have to keep an eye on it and get back to you guys once I can explain it like I'm 5. Like you're 5. All right, so some ENS news. ENS Controller V2 is ready for review. This adds features that pay independent developers, saves up to 40% on gas costs, and allows simpler one-transaction registrations. And the coolest bit, according to Alex Vandersand, is it's all built by an independent team. So that is quite cool, actually. So you can read the blog post for full details here. Obviously, I think what I'm most excited about is the 40% gas cost savings and the simpler one transaction registrations, because I think those two things have been something that people have knocked ENS for a while now, that it was too complex to do a registration. It took too long, and obviously the gas costs, 40% savings on gas costs is obviously very huge here. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. And I just want to finish up here because I'm coming up on time. Last update is one out of Sismo today. So they're releasing another ZK badge for Sismo, which is the Sismo Contributor ZK badge, which is central to their governance. Through private voting, the community will help us curate badges. So you can mint yours now at this link here. And this thread talks more about badge curation. So just a quick recap on what Sismo is here, and also a disclaimer that I'm an investor in Sismo. But what they are is that they're basically issuing these things called ZK badges for reputation aggregation and privacy preserving access control. Explain like I'm 5 version of that is, imagine you have, and I've explained this before on the refill, but just to recap for people, imagine you have 1,000 Aave tokens on your cold storage address that you don't want to expose to the world. You could mint yourself a badge that proves that you have that you own 1,000 Aave tokens, but you don't have to reveal what address those Aave tokens are on. And the badge using ZK Magic is proof of that. So the Aave protocol knows that you own that 1,000 Aave. It just doesn't know where you own it. And you can use that badge, obviously, in governance to vote on the governance proposal as if you had 1,000 Aave in a different wallet. So you can basically separate your public wallet. So I could separate Sassel.eth from all of my private wallets, all of my cold storage wallets, but still interact with DeFi, interact with governance, interact with NFTs, all these sorts of stuff without revealing anything else that I've got in my cold storage and private storage, which I think is obviously very cool. That's why I back this team, because I think what they're building is very much needed and falls in with the privacy stuff that I definitely am very passionate about. But you can go mint your contributor badge if you're eligible. Links in the YouTube description, but that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.